Hi, my name is Alice Guype, and I would like to take this opportunity to present my interpersonal communication project for HSCO 508 at Liberty University. Next slide. The overview of this presentation will cover the following topics: my personal overarching goal, the importance of the concept of enlarging the conversation, my background behavioral blend. I will discuss the potential barriers to communication, as well as solutions to internal and external noise pollution, and my plan of action. Next slide. To start off, I would like to begin by defining what interpersonal communication is. According to Jon Stewart, author of Bridges Not Walls, he defined interpersonal communication as the type of communication that happens when the people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the personal. Also, in order to understand how interpersonal communication, we must understand how interpersonal communication functions to meet our needs and goals, and how our interpersonal communication connects to larger social and cultural systems. Next slide. So what all is involved in the process of communication? For one, it is important to understand what communication means. To Stewart, communication is a process that involves the exchange of feelings, information, and meaning through verbal and nonverbal messages. Effective communication is also concerned with how these messages are said and to achieve the goal of dialogue, where each person involved in the conversation understands their role as either the talker or the listener. Without effective communication, Peterson, author of Why Don't We Listen Better, stated that poor communication blocks access to the deeper relationships we want, and our friendships remain distant and impersonal. Next slide. The metaphor of inhaling and exhaling refers to students' analogy of breathing during interpersonal communication. Inhaling refers to how individuals receive information that deals a lot with perception, while exhaling involves a vital process that describes how the individual receives the information. According to Stewart, no metaphor is perfect, of course, and one problem with this one is that inhaling and exhaling happen sequentially, while perceiving and talking takes place simultaneously. In this sense, communication is even more dynamic than my metaphor suggests. With that said, the goal of the metaphor is to focus more on inhaling in order to move a relationship to a higher level of trust and freedom. Next slide. Before I discuss my personal overarching goal, it is important that the term is defined first. An overarching goal contains a set of related goals. As for me, my personal overarching goal is to become an empathetic listener to others, while at the same time seeking to become fully aware of the various communication styles, improve my listening skills, comprehend the levels of communication skills, and last but not least, reduce internal and external noise pollution. Next slide. This slide will focus on the concept of enlarging the conversation, which simply means how to keep a conversation going by keeping the goals of ownership and openness in mind, as described by Peterson in his book, Why Don't We Listen Better? Ownership refers to individuals who take responsibility for the feelings and thoughts that are theirs. Openness in communication makes it clear that we are open to other people, that they too are people who have something to offer. Next slide. To understand one's communication style, it is important to learn about the individual's background. As for me, I am the youngest of 4 children, and I attended the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, where I earned a bachelor's in psychology in 2003. I have been married for 8 years, and together we have 2 children, a 7-year-old boy, and a 5-year-old girl. For the past 2 years, I have worked with students who are at risk of dropping out of high school, and it is my goal to return to this population after I graduate to enjoy a career in high school counseling. Next slide. In order to determine my own behavioral blend, I took an online assessment from Uniquely You during the first week of this course. This assessment, called the DISC Profile, is broken down into 4 quadrants. D is for active and task-oriented, I is for active and people-oriented, S is for passive and people-oriented, and C is for passive and task-oriented. Upon completion of this assessment, it was revealed to me that I possess a CS blend. This simply means that I possess the following personality blends. I am accurate, precise, and task-oriented, steady, stable, and friendly towards others. I enjoy listening to others, and I thrive on multitasking and routine. Now that I am aware of my personal behavioral blend, a deeper and richer conversation can occur as a result. Next slide. There are several positive and negative characteristics of the CS blend that are important to become aware of for individuals such as myself. As for the positive characteristics, I have a conscientious personality, I am accurate and precise, are friendly and sympathetic, very detail-oriented, I am a great problem solver, and I enjoy listening and understand people, and last but not least, I love to thrive on a routine. The negatives include having a passive attitude, difficulty verbalizing feelings, I avoid conflict, and I'm not very fond of change. Next slide. The barriers to communication that was revealed in the assigned readings for this class include biased listening, physical barriers, semantic barriers, external distractions, and flat brain syndrome. Biased listening refers to rhetorical communication and inferring, while stress, hunger, and fatigue serve as examples of the physical barriers to communication. Semantic barriers refer to what Burley Allen stated in her book, Listening: The Forgotten Skill. She said, "Meanings are not in words, meanings are in people." The fourth barrier, external distractions, contain deception, betrayal, and resistance, while the final barrier to communication is known as the flat brain syndrome. Basically, this term is used to show what happens to us when our systems go out of whack. For example, our stomachs expand with an overload of mixed emotions. They press the heart functions into bricks in our chests and send our related abilities south on us. The upward expansion flattens our brains against the tops of our skulls, forcing our thinking, hearing, and seeing off kilter. As a result, the flat brain tango occurs, where we can't hear well, see accurately, think straight, or act sensibly. Next slide. So how am I going to go about resolving these communication barriers to communication that was just discussed in the previous slide? My first solution would be to achieve level 1 listening, which involves listeners refraining from judging the talker and placing themselves in the other position by attempting to see things from his or her point of view. As for the physical barriers, I will engage in conversations when I'm more alert and less stressed. Furthermore, I will use Peterson's goals of ownership and openness to overcome the semantic barriers. Next, the concept of nexting, or to say and do something next that could help to improve the situation, in addition to using the I-rational approach, will provide excellent solutions to external distractions. Finally, avoiding the flat brain syndrome by ensuring that my stomach, heart, and head are all working in sync during communication will also provide for a great solution. Next slide. Noise pollution can have a considerable effect on communication and interferes with our ability to be an empathetic listener to others. To overcome noise pollution, it is important to define the two different types. Internal noise pollution is derived from psychological and physiological factors, such as lack of concentration or biased listening. External noise pollution originates from physical and semantic factors, like noise and room temperature. Next slide. To combat internal noise pollution, it is important to apply what Burley Allen stated in Listening, the Forgotten Skill. Effective listening involves not only tuning into others, but tuning in to ourselves. Listening carefully to what we say and how we say it can teach us an immense amount about ourselves. Being patient, positive, and process information more effectively can all serve to combat internal noise pollution. The solutions to external pollution are more preventable and more adjustable, and can improve communication when detected early, and may include going to a less distracting location, concentrating on one task at a time, and ask for clarity. It is also recommended that active coping with noise may be sufficient to mitigate any ill effects on an individual's health. Next slide. With all of the information I just presented, I have devised my own plan of action to communicate effectively. First, I will demonstrate effective communication that promotes interpersonal relationships to a higher level of trust and freedom. I will attain empathetic listening, use the I-rational approach, avoid inferring, be aware of the flat brain syndrome, utilize Peterson's talker-listener process, improve time management skills, and confide in God and appropriate scriptures to guide me in effective communication. Next slide. This now concludes my project on interpersonal communication, and I appreciate your listening.